What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Happy Skews Day to you. It is July 11th, 2023. I'm Trey Crowder. That's Mark Agee. Welcome back, Mark. We had last week off.
Yeah,
America's
buddy.
birthday. Good to be
Hope your
back.
fourth was good. What'd you guys do?
We went on a little camping trip to one of the only lakes they have out here in Southern California, and it the the scenery and everything's nice. It's beautiful, but it's also a bit of a shit show down there. I call it a camping trip. It's like a big campground, so it's just filled with
Mhm.
people. And apparently, this is the one you go to party at, I guess, which was not what we were doing. We're sitting in our tents at like 11:30. Like, do they not know that quiet hours start at 10? What's wrong with these people? Just being
Yeah,
boring and parents about it. But it was fun though.
yeah.
Didn't get sunburned, so that's a
Yeah,
plus.
my family had a camper when I was a kid. We used to go to this little campground in Powhatan, Virginia. That's where I lost my virginity, buddy.
That's fun.
On a playground. Nice memories. So we got a full show tonight. We're talking about like the GOP's latest oversight investigation into the air quote Biden crime family blowing up in their face in a rather stupid fashion. A lot of shit happening. More Clarence Thomas corruption. He's been taking rich people's gifts since the 80s, it looks like. Nobody's going to do anything. Tommy Tuberville, senator from Alabama, went full Klan mode, saying being white nationalist is just being American, which, without looking into it any further, I'm just going to assume he's agreeing with Louis Farrakhan, and we have some racial progress.
He's on one right now, and isn't he also kind of like holding the military hostage, basically?
Yeah, that's what he's being. Basically, he won't approve any military. He sits on a committee that approves like military promotions. He won't approve any because he says that the DoD is paying for abortions or something. I can't follow it, but the fact one senator like there's no one in charge of the Marines right now. The Marine Commandant was forced to retire by law, and so like I guess the Marines are just I'm assuming someone's in charge, but technically not. It's probably an interim somebody, but like we're not at war or whatever. It's probably no big deal, but it's utterly buffoon shit out of the Senate.
Well, it's like you said, the fact that just one senator can even do that is, bullshit in and of itself,
Yeah.
especially an ideologue dumbass like he is. So
Yeah. Democrats could have the majority. They could change the rules if they wanted to. They're just letting them do it. Maybe they want the campaign issue. Former President Trump did the world a solid. He volunteered the idea that he'd be kind enough to let all the money that's focused on the special counsel investigation into him be refocused to figure out who had the little baggie of cocaine at the White House a couple weeks ago.
That's
And
nice of him.
yeah, in the process of which he called the special prosecutor a crackhead.
Yeah.
Basically, like he'd love to look for cocaine. He's a crackhead. So everybody's a crackhead.
Yeah, he said he looked like a crackhead to him or whatever, which I thought was funny because I feel like Jack Smith, the special prosecutor, at least with like the hair and the facial hair and everything, kind of sort of looks like Don Jr. a little bit, like a similar kind of thing going on. But to be fair, I mean Don Jr. seems like a crackhead too, so
Yeah.
I guess it's not really a gotcha.
There's a fun thing going on where there's another fun thing going on where Nazis are showing up to protest with Proud Boys. The Proud Boys are beating up the Nazis, not because they're Nazis, but because Patriot Front wears masks. They assume they're all undercover feds.
Yeah.
So there's no problem with the Nazis as long as they're not undercover federal agents. But so this poor kid, he was like just a poli-sci graduate out here in California, was at a Dodgers game. His phone starts blowing up. Turns out he looked like one of the people that was unmasked, so people called him a Fed. Elon Musk drew attention to it, called it a false flag op. This kid had to go on the run for his life because he was getting death threats. His family went into hiding. So the internet was a mistake. The only thing good on it is weekly Skews.
It's fun the way they constantly are like assuming each of them, assuming each other are feds or informants or whatever. And I mean, I get it because a lot of them, are informants or whatever it turns out. But that's what's funny to me is like they're all, they eat their own a lot because they think everybody's a fed. Like I know there's that one guy, Ray Epps or whatever, who was at the Capitol. He was like hardcore Trump guy, hardcore MAGA guy, goes to the Capitol, was saying, let's go into the Capitol, everybody. But then he didn't go in. So they all decided he was a Fed and they ruined his life. Also, he's been living on the run and now he's suing Fox News because Tucker Carlson called him a Fed and all that stuff. It's got to be like, I wonder what that guy's like, how that's affected his politics. You know what I mean? Because he's like a true believer. And then they're like, coming for him like that.
Yeah,
it's like tough.
I can't believe these guys are so full of made up bullshit in just this one specific instance. Everything else I
Right.
about is true and accurate that they told me, but
Right.
not this because I know I'm not a Fed. But it's funny that he's suing Fox News for for libel for accusing him of having a job and not being a MAGA psycho. So that's funny.
Mhm.
Here's a fun story out of Russia. And I promise this will end up funny, even though it's about a guy getting murdered. But so a Russian submarine commander by the name of Stanislav Rizitsky was assassinated yesterday morning on his daily run, and he's back home in Russia in a city named Krasnodar. What makes
Run like a jog? Like
yeah, yeah, it's an
okay.
important element of this. All right,
Yeah.
so if you wonder what makes him a target, he was a sub commander in the Black Sea Fleet, and a lot of the most dangerous missile attacks on civilians, Ukrainian cities have come from submarines in the Black Sea. So that's why it makes him a legit military target, besides just being the Russian military. But turns out he was posting all his bicycling jaunts and jogs onto a social media app called Strava, which is one of those fitness things that shows off how you're working out.
Yeah.
It was public.
Mhm.
So whoever assassinated him just waited along the route of his morning jog in a spot where there are no cameras, then shot him and just casually walked off. And the fun part is this is unverified, but one of the 4 likes in his post shares the same last name as the guy who's the head of Ukrainian intelligence.
What a time to be alive, or well, dead now in
Yeah.
that guy's case. But yeah, uh, yeah,
Yeah.
documenting your daily activities down to, to the minute detail like that seems like a bad idea if you're, a commander in an ongoing war. But
Yeah, I
what
told
do
my
I know?
wife this story, and she's like, "I wouldn't even post my jogs."
Mhm.
It's just, when you're like a Russian military commander, you have worse OPSEC than just an American woman who lives in fear for just being a woman, and that's just
Right.
that's truly crazy times.
Yeah, it's not
But
just it's like showing off like, "Hey, look how much, exercise I get, really living right out here," like or in fact, you can see here's the exact route I take and the exact
uh
same time every day, never miss a day, ever, always exactly on time, 9 a.m., this exact route, which is, 1.8 miles, pretty good each way, so, hope everybody's proud of me. Just
Yeah.
taking
So
notes.
if you guys living in fear of yourself being too online, don't worry about it unless you're doing that shit. So here's another fun moron story about J6. So a couple guys are up for sentencing. They're supposed to be sentenced today. They waived the right to a jury trial and just let the judge sentence them. Um, uh, One of them is a guy named James Beeks. He's the next Broadway star. He was in Jesus Christ Superstar, the touring version. Um, by the way, to arrest him, the FBI went to 2 shows. So I guess
Mhm.
either they couldn't get him after the first one, or they just really,
I
really
just
liked him
liked
and
it.
wanted to
I
go.
really like Jesus Christ. It was supposed to be a good show,
So he was also a Michael Jackson impersonator in Times Square. His YouTube page claimed he was one of the top Michael Jackson tribute artists in America. That's according to the Justice Department, which they put in the brief for reasons that because he wore his Michael Jackson Bad World Tour jacket to January 6th. He's part of the Oath Keepers conspiracy trial. So he was in the stack fighting its way up the Capitol of the armed guys in tack gear. So I just think sort of a beautiful American story. You got
Yeah.
these Oath Keepers that are veterans in a stack with a black dude, a Michael Jackson impersonator. It's like ain't that any other context had been like this is fucking dope. So he tried some sovereign citizen bullshit, which I think we talked about sovereign citizens. There are people who think the American government's illegitimate because they put friends in the flag or something. So he was trying to wave around his birth certificate, saying the judge had no right to sentence him, and the judge is like, "I don't even understand what you're saying, but I have jurisdiction here, and I'm going to sentence you." So it's just
Has that, ever worked for any of those people, the sovereigns? Of course
no.
it doesn't, because it's not a real thing, so it doesn't work, but it's wild that they keep trying it. I guess maybe it's like, well, what other what else am I gonna try? But, the idea that, uh, I I reject the premise that the government has any sort of authority over me because I have declared myself a sovereign citizen.
Mhm.
It's like, yeah, I don't think that's gonna work. Also, you got a long storied history of it never ever working, so,
Yeah,
worth
it's
a
always so
shot, I
funny
guess.
because government databases have everybody's name in all caps. They'll be like, "Well, my name is in all caps, so therefore it's not me in the charging documents." It's like, okay, but buddy, no one gets off on that kind of technicality.
Right.
It's just such funny dumbasses. But yeah, it's like am I being detained to the cop? It's like, yeah, you're being
Mhm.
detained, buddy. It's like you're the U.S. government. You can't put me in prison unlawfully. In my head, it's like they could put you in prison unlawfully in the real world. So your fucking bullshit arguments don't really have any sort of sway.
Yeah, but never
Yeah.
stopped them before, so
Mhm.
sure it won't this time either. All right, let's get into it. With us, as always, is producer Matt. You guys don't get to see, of course, but he got a fresh haircut. I know you guys must be jealous missing out, but he remains a man of mystery. This is Weekly Skews. Before we continue, I want to remind you, of course, of a few items of business. Number one, if you'd like to see me perform stand-up comedy live and in the flesh, and you should do so, go to TreyCrowder.com. Get your tickets. I'm going to be in Milwaukee tomorrow night, then Appleton after that, then a big Kentucky run next week, and a whole bunch of other places coming up over the course of the rest of this year and into 2024. It's a lot of fun doing a full hour. You should come check it out. TreyCrowder.com. On the note of me doing stand-up, you can also get on my YouTube page and watch Damn Boy, my special, for free if you should so choose. And again, I think you should. Lastly, if you enjoy this program and would like to show your support, you can do so by signing up on Patreon. Go to weeklyskews.com/more or go on Patreon and look for my name. Either way works. $5 a month gets you access to full-length bonus episodes. We just did one. We did two in a row, actually, the past 2 weeks. This last week, we talked about Sound of Freedom, the QAnon adjacent movie that's taken the country by storm. No pun intended. Storm's one of their things, right? Anyway, we
Yep.
cover things that don't come up in the main show or we don't have time for or come up in between or just shit we want to talk about. It's a lot of fun. You could support the show in the process. So we hope you will consider it. weeklyskews.com/more or go on Patreon and find us, get some more skews in your life. Now, as for the show tonight, as Mark alluded to earlier, the GOP's had control of the House for over a year now. They have vowed to take down, fully investigate the Biden crime family. How's that going? Well, they have at least one witness who they say is credible. And it seems now that witness might, in fact, be a arms trafficking spy for China who's currently on the run. So that seems less than ideal. We'll talk about it a little bit later. But first, of course, the Daily Dumbass. Matt, graphic, please. Tonight's DD, Ron DeSantis for making an anti-gay music video too gay for Pete Buttigieg. Let's hear from the man himself.
Reaction to that video?
You know, I'm going to choose my words carefully, partly because I'm appearing as secretary, so I can't talk about campaigns. And I'm going to leave aside the strangeness of trying to prove your manhood by putting up a video that splices images of you in between oiled up shirtless bodybuilders, and just get to the bigger issue that is on my mind whenever I see this stuff in the policy space, which is, again, who are you trying to help? Who are you trying to make better
Right.
off? And what
You can cut it,
public
Matt.
policy problems?
So did we show this video, Mark?
No,
I
we
can't remember
can't.
if it was a pay. Okay.
No, we talked about it, but we didn't show it. I'm glad we didn't because I didn't want to show it because it's gross, but also we can't show it because it got scrubbed from the internet because DeSantis was so embarrassed by the backlash to it. But the
Right.
video we're talking about, DeSantis' campaign reposted a video that some of his supporters had made that contrasted some pro-LGBTQ stuff Trump had said with news reports about Ron DeSantis being super, super hard on gay people in Florida.
Yeah,
Right?
it's literally just him like flexing about how terrible he is to the LGBT movement and like making Trump look like good and like look like heroic almost. And
Right.
you know, the quotes they take out of context of Trump, you know, being supportive of the LGBT movement and DeSantis flexing on how much he hates them all and all the things he's done to
Right.
make their lives miserable. But as Mayor Pete's referring to, this is like intercut with footage of oiled up bodybuilders and like Brad Pitt and just, you know, real super manly men who aren't in there for sexiness reasons at all, aren't turning anybody on. But
and the Brad Pitt character of the show was Achilles in the movie Troy, which is that character is a gay icon. So it's like he also had images comparing Ron DeSantis to Patrick Bateman, this serial killer from American Psycho. They used a clip from Peaky Blinders in it. The people from Peaky Blinders that come out and tell him, like, disavow him, which is like when one video gets gay people, sensitive humans, bodybuilders, Christian Bateman, and the cast and crew of Peaky Blinders mad at you, I think you probably fucked up. But it was so utterly weird. But the context makes it even grosser, because one of the clips in the video is Trump speaking at the RNC in 2016. He said, "I will do anything in my power to protect LGBTQ citizens." That was right after the Pulse nightclub shooting. He was reacting to Pulse, which again was in Florida, where a bunch of residents of Florida, where Ron DeSantis is the fucking governor, got murdered. And Trump was expressing a little bit of human empathy because somebody had put it in the teleprompter for him to say. And
that's one of the worst ones ever, right? In this country, like that mass shooting. I mean, it was like, they're all horrific, but that was like, even in, on that list of horrific things, that was among the more,
it was one of the deadliest. I think it's in the, I've lost sight count of my rankings now. I think Vegas is still first, and you got the, the Virginia Tech shooting and all that shit. But
yeah, so Trump says something like human in response to that, and that is one of the things specifically that the governor of Florida, where the tragedy took place, used like in opposition to him. It's tone deaf, ain't even like, doesn't even begin to describe it.
And the also the context of that, if everybody remembers way back in 2016, it feels like a fucking century ago. But the Pulse shooter was a guy who had shouted out ISIS, and that's more complicated than that. I don't want to go into the history of the whole case, but they were trying to pander to gay folks in service of ginning up fear mongering against Muslims in 2016, before Trump did the Muslim ban and all that shit. And he cited Pulse nightclub as a reason to do the Muslim ban. And now they're sort of doing the reverse. All this gay panic hate and gay and trans hate is being ginned up, and they're pandering to Muslims about it, and it's working. There are a lot of communities around, like Michigan, for example, where Muslims are joining the front lines of like these Moms for Liberty groups and stuff, fighting about books in classrooms. So it's like, I wish people would see the game here, because it's not even really that Holocaust poem. First they came for the socialists, first they came for the gypsies, yada yada yada, because they're just taking turns coming for different groups, and everybody has like a 10-second memory about when they were last to come after. But speaking of which, the log cabin Republicans were very offended by this ad. Gay, there's a group, they're the gay conservatives. They had a bunch of them previously supported DeSantis. They bought into all of his other gay hate because they thought it was just about parental rights, which I don't know how anyone can still be fooled by the, won't anyone think of the children bullshit. It's never not been used.
Well, that's always, I mean, that's the basis for the whole thing. Like you said, they're getting like some Muslims showing up on the front lines. I've seen fundamentalist Christians too spreading the same type of thing or whatever, which, I mean, that's like right down the fairway for them. But I'm saying, like, they use the kids, the kids are, this is all about the kids, to bring in these like super religious conservatives or whatever to their cause. And it's all bullshit. Obviously, it has nothing to do with the kids, but yeah, people keep buying into it. The log cabin Republicans are always kind of funny to me anytime I see a headline of them where it's like, I feel like I've been lied to or whatever. And it's always like, I thought we were only going to be hating, Mexicans and black people or whatever, immigrants and Muslims. I didn't know that. I know we're going to be hating me. That's not what I signed up for. I was just here to hate all the other people. It's like, yeah, you know what you expected, buddy.
I understand most voters are cross pressured. That's where you get swing voters, because like I might be like, we talked about a lot. I might be, I might want low taxes, but also be pro gay marriage or vice versa. Which there's no reason like there can't be a gay person who also works for an oil company, doesn't want government regulation, also wants lower taxes. Everybody has to triage or rank their different priorities when it comes to when they get in a voting booth. I don't understand people who put their own humanity lower on the list than a little bit more money. Mm-hmm. But that sort of makes no sense to me. But like, just as a reminder of like the people, the groups these people are making alliances with. And by the way, one of the gay conservatives that came out against DeSantis was George Santos. So he got to do one cool thing in his life. He said, I used to think he was a great governor. But now I'm starting to think differently. Oh, congratulations, George Santos. So last Tuesday, July 4th, there were a couple mass shootings, of course. One was in Philadelphia. This guy shot up his own neighborhood. Now, he was a hardcore Trump supporter and guns rights activist who, from his social media posts, looked like he'd gone in a falling down type situation. Like he was upset about, in his mind, urban decay or something. So he just shot up his own neighborhood. There's so much crime in my neighborhood, I'm going to shoot it up. So he killed 5 people. His Facebook page was straightforward right wing, but he also had a couple of pictures where he dressed in drag. So of course he became, quote, according to a far right blog. No, this is according to Marjorie Taylor Greene, quote, another trans shooter. We talked about it before, but the right has decided that every mass shooter is trans now because there was one, and one guy who said he was as a joke. So, and he also, this guy, if you wonder how far gone these lunatics are, one of the reasons he thought Biden was going to take everyone's guns is because he said God save the Queen after the Queen died or something. I can't put two and two together. I guess because England has gun control. If that was Biden confessing to being for massive gun control because he was sad, because he pretended, if you remember, he's Irish, but he pretended to be sad the Queen died. So like, I just don't. I can't wrap. Yeah, some people are. There's no use trying to make sense of them.
No, but it's like like you said, the whole trans thing. All the mass shooters we've had, how many of them had no kind of even trans adjacent ideologies or postings or identities or any of that type of thing, and that just all gets wiped away because, like you said, one person, and then or with this person, it's like there's pictures of them in drag, and that just supersedes all the rest of it, all the other radicalization, whatever that clearly went on there. It's like, it can't be that. It's because he wore dresses or whatever. That's the real problem here, and it just makes no sense whatsoever. But plays it right into what they want to believe and think. Like, yeah, that's the real problem.
Yeah, I mean, politically, I can't even figure out what the fuck DeSantis is doing because he's behind Trump even in Florida. So, like, I don't understand the point of doing this stuff anymore. Like, they took down the embarrassing ad, but the new version of it is using a lot of the same footage about Trump saying nice stuff about gay people. Like, some of the stuff he said was like he'd be fine with trans women competing in the Miss Universe pageant when he owned it. He said he'd be fine. A Fox News interviewer straight up asked if he'd be fine with Caitlyn Jenner using the women's bathroom at Trump Tower, and he said, yeah, which is, yeah. And they repackaged the same footage and put it in an ad that's ostensibly from, it's framed to look like a left-wing PAC. And it's basically congratulating Trump on being progressive with gay rights. So that's how they're doing it now, is like trying to do jujitsu after going straight for his head. But like another political dude, DeSantis is going to lose Florida by 50. This story fucking killed me. This headline says, this is the death sentence for me. Florida Republican women say they'll switch parties after DeSantis approves alimony law. So DeSantis signed a bill that ends permanent alimony. They're switching to a system based upon longevity of the marriage and stuff like that, which I don't really have a strong take on alimony. I get why permanent alimony for a one-year marriage might be unfair, but also if, you know, the deal is that the wife stays home with the kids while you work and you leave her, then you've taken her out of the workforce and probably owe her some recompense. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, but again, all these people not realizing what they're signing up for. This is the leopards eating faces party.
Right. Yeah.
This quote from a woman, she says she's like, she got at least 3,000 women who are going to switch parties, which I don't know if that's enough, but there's got to be more than that who will discover this and get mad about it. But the quote says that the so-called party of family values has just contributed to the erosion of the institution of marriage in Florida, which I guess what she's saying is that it makes it easier for husbands to leave wives if they don't have to pay alimony, so therefore they're adding to the divorce rate, which is a really bleak way to, my husband's only staying with me so he doesn't have to pay me, and that's the way I like it. But like any cursory, just walking around Florida, you'll see that the Republican Party base is a bunch of divorcees.
Right.
Who are wealthy.
Of course, yeah. That's Florida, baby. Yeah.
Right. So politically, this is one of the most ham-fisted. Yeah.
Well, it's like it's it's like you said, and like I mentioned with the log cabin Republicans, or whatever. Like you said, the leopards eating faces party. Well, I didn't know the leopards were going to eat my face. Like they're not hurting the right people. This isn't what I signed up. I was supposed to be cool. Everybody, you know, which is always funny to me. But also, like, this is. I don't know what the end game is supposed to be for Republican politicians like DeSantis. It's like they just keep adding more and more groups of people to the list of demographics whose lives they are ruining or who they're like straight up targeting. And it's like, how does that make sense from a political standpoint? Like, what's your voting block going to be if you like willfully alienate everybody you can, except for like just one very, very clearly defined demographic, you know, that's exactly like you? I just I don't understand how that's supposed to work.
Yeah, I'll never forget it. There was a quote like a year into Trump's presidency. There was a person, I don't know, Trump had done something that fucked over people, like they were part of his base, poor white people or something. And this woman said, he's not hurting the people he's
Right.
supposed to be hurting.
Right. Yeah.
And anyway, it goes
That's
back to
it
that.
right there, dude. That's it.
Yeah.
That quote from that lady meant in complete sincerity. That's
Mhm.
that's the whole thing to me. He's not hurting the people
Yeah.
he's supposed to be hurting. Like it's a pretty
Yeah.
bleak outlook on the whole thing, but
I think,
it is what it is, though.
yeah, I've said some not super awesome shit about Mayor Pete on here, but I would say that framing is a good approach to all this stuff. Every time you get dragged into some dumb culture war bullshit, instead of participating in the argument or agreeing with it, what you can do is just go back to what he said, which is, who is this supposed to be helping?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Who is it supposed to be helping? That's it. That's the end. It's the end ball game. So focus on helping people. Would be my pitch to any politician who wants to continue to get elected.
So our honorable mention for Daily Dumbass is anyone who isn't currently investing in Nevada beach houses. Let's try to hit this clip here, Matt.
The ocean's rising over the next 300 years. That's a risk. Creates more beachfront property, actually. That's the way you have to view it.
Just riffing, Mark. Just doing his thing.
I find this infuriating for a lot of reasons, because I hear conservatives make this joke, a version of this joke a lot. Rising oceans makes less beachfront property. Think about what encroaching does. It shrinks.
Right.
So not only are you destroying a ton of like oceanfront property, you're making less of it. So the joke doesn't even make any fucking sense.
Right.
And if you're making this joke right now in the middle of this summer, and I do want to say it's Nevada. Trey said Nevada. Please don't send us hate mail.
What?
People get really
Is that
mad.
true? It's Nevada.
Yeah,
people
Nevada.
get pissed about that. It's Nevada.
It's like saying
knew.
Arkansas or something,
or like Appalachia. People say it's Appalachia. Okay, so it's Nevada. I'll try to remember that. I'm definitely going to keep calling it Nevada, but okay, Nevada. Got it. Anyway, go ahead.
To say that right now, July 4th was the Earth's hottest day in over 100,000 years, the hottest day in recorded human history.
Yeah.
Only to be surpassed by the next 2 or 3 consecutive fucking days. All right. Farmers just yesterday, Farmers Insurance just announced they're going to stop. They're like the latest home insurance company to pull out of Florida. Other insurance companies have done so too, because they can't afford to keep replacing homes because of the fucking hurricanes. It's not, Florida's government's response is be like, well, if you can't sell homeowners insurance, then we're not going to let you sell car insurance. It's like, okay, so you're not going to have car insurance either. That's your solution. And Greg Abbott just signed a law in Texas a few days ago that basically kept municipalities from having water break ordinances for people who work outside.
Like that. What is supposed to be the point of that? Because it costs employers money. Is that what it is? Like, or it's big government. It would be big government to require water breaks. So we're going to pull them. I just don't get the upside of being like, we're going to ban mandatory water breaks in the middle of what is shaping up to be the hottest summer in, recorded history or whatever. Like,
well, the socialist bastion of Dallas had overreached, Trey. So just to throw a couple numbers at you, this bill was signed by Governor Abbott on June 6th. Since then, 11 people between the ages of 60 and 80 have died of heat-related illness in just one county. That's Webb County. Most didn't have air conditioning. A teen and a stepfather died while hiking in extreme heat at Big Bend National Park. The Texas Tribune said at least 9 inmates, including 2 men in their 30s, died in Texas prisons that don't have air conditioning. Those wouldn't be affected by this bill, but it's the context of how fucking hot it is. At least 3 workers died after collapsing on the job while laboring in triple-digit heat since Abbott signed that bill. A post office worker in Dallas, a utility lineman in East Texas, and a construction worker in Houston. You can't draw a connection between those and the water break thing because nobody's keeping track of when the last time they had water was. But these things have worked. Since these ordinances passed in Austin in 2010 and Dallas in 2015, those cities saw a decrease in annual heat-related illnesses and heat deaths. In fact, since 2011, annual workplace heat-related illness numbers have dropped by 78%, while workplace heat-related deaths have cut in half. So stuff like drinking water when it's hot does help. Science is proven.
This is just only really tangentially related, but it reminds me, and Texas comes up. And when I was playing high school football, there was so this was in the early 2000s, and I was in Tennessee. There was a high school football player in Texas who died of heat stroke, right?
Mhm.
And it was like on the news and all this stuff. And so as a result of that, it wasn't actual laws or anything. It became a thing like they need to have water breaks. These children who are are wearing all these pants and fucking whipping each other's asses out in the 100-degree heat for hours at a time should probably be given water. And I remember our coaches, like, they did it, but they like made fun of it the whole time. Do you know what I mean? They're like, oh, guess we got to give you guys water now because y'all can't handle, going a couple hours without a drink. Like making us out to be like huge pussies for wanting water when it's 100 degrees. And then they get out there and like, we ain't into this drill till somebody knocks somebody else the fuck out, just encouraging concussions and discouraging water and shit. And it was just the culture, but I guess water breaks are for pussies, like, in some cultures, Mark. So
Yeah.
problem. They weren't ready for a warming earth,
Yeah. And speaking of thirst, the congressional GOP is thirsting for a witness who can help them take down Joe Biden. How you like that? Like that transition, Trey?
It was great. Wonderful segue.
So, like Trey said, we're almost a year into the GOP control of the House. They campaigned on rooting out corruption in the air quote Biden crime family. Let's take a look at how the clown show is going today. So, because a bunch of shit happened yesterday about a witness they think had some knowledge of some Biden shenanigans in China related to Hunter and some oil company. I don't know. But here was James Comer, who's the head of the House Oversight Committee, talking about this guy in May.
Hold on a second, Congressman. Did you just say that the whistleblower or the informant is now missing?
Well, we're hopeful that we can find the informant. Now, remember, these informants are kind of in the spy business. So
yeah,
hold on.
He's more right than he knew at the time, because we're going to get to this guy's criminal charges in a minute. But so he was all over TV doing interviews, walking up to the edge of accusing Biden of murdering this witness. Yeah. Like personally climbing in his window in those little, those socks Hitman wears so they don't leave behind shoe prints,
right?
And plastic gloves, and double tapping the guy on the head and then cutting up his body. And
it's classic. It's classic Sleepy Joe stuff right there, man. Getting his own hands dirty, climbing in, killing people with his bare hands, like every, dementia-ridden papaw does.
So the context here, right-wing media has been harassing these guys because they keep having all these hearings and nothing comes out of them. They go on like Fox and Friends and shit, and they're like, "What the fuck? There's nothing here. What are you guys doing? Where is the red meat?" And they're like, "It's coming. It's coming." Like, so they had this witness who he was supposed to have a press conference with a couple weeks ago. The guy obviously didn't show up for reasons we're going to get to in a second. And he just like rambled about influence peddling and a bunch of bullshit. So they weren't getting anywhere with saying that there was his witness, and he might have had tapes, except he disappeared and so did the tapes. So maybe there weren't tapes. And so Comer went on Newsmax a couple days ago and named the guy. All right. If you got this next video of Comer, Matt, you can hit it.
Chairman of House Oversight, Congressman James Comer joins me now. Sir, good to have you back on. Tell us about this man. The Post describes him as well-connected in intelligence circles in Washington, D.C., where he ran a think tank, the Institute for the Analysis of Global Security, with former CIA Director James Woolsey and former National Security Advisor Robert McFarlane as advisors. That's who this man is. He's not just some weird guy that popped up out of nowhere.
No, he's very credible. And the people on MSNBC who made fun of me when I said we had an informant that was missing, they should feel like fools right now.
They are fools.
And this is their worst nightmare, because
the reason he's taking a victory lap, this guy's name is Gal Luft. He's a dual Israeli-American citizen who works in defense think tank stuff, or that's his cover job at least. He was taking a victory lap because the guy posted a video, a 15-minute video, saying the Biden Justice Department was persecuting him because he had dirt on them. All right. So he's doing a victory lap because the guy was alive. Mm-hmm. But what happened next is because this Gal Luft guy was saying he was being unfairly persecuted, the Justice Department said, fuck it, and made public his indictment, all right, which has him pretty much dead to rights over a bunch of shit, including working for China to try to get James Woolsey, who was on Trump's transition team as a national security advisor, in a position in the White House on Asian issues. They were emailing about it and gloating about how great it was going to be. So them using James Woolsey, who is a former CIA guy, as a character witness when he was also working as a Chinese agent, maybe unwittingly, is fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
So So this all blew up in Comer and the GOP's face pretty hilariously yesterday. He was charged. He's been charged for a while. He was indicted in November, and they arrested him in Cyprus in February. But then he got bail and went on the lam. He's been missing ever since then. That's why Comer couldn't find him until he made that video. He claims to have information about Hunter Biden. But now he himself has been charged with arms trafficking, sanctions violations, and acting as an unregistered agent for China. Among the stuff he did, so he got Woolsey an op-ed about giving into China on some issues, placed in something like Foreign Policy magazine or something, and a co-byline with it. And the article is cited in the indictment. They don't name James Woolsey, but they quote from the op-ed at length. All you got to do is Google the clip, and it's obviously James Woolsey they're talking about. And the thing about this is the Republicans knew he was full of shit or a tainted witness because, again, he's been indicted since November.
Right. But he's just all they got, right? I mean, they don't
Right.
have anything else, and they're like desperate to come up with something. So,
Well, the government does. The government does need oversight. Like these guys, there's tons of stuff these guys could be looking into that would get to fraud and corruption, waste and abuse, but not this cartoonish shit where Joe Biden is sucking President Xi's dick or some shit. It doesn't make any sort of fucking sense. So to walk through the timeline here, Luke was charged November 1st, 2022. The GOP has been saying that prosecutors from the DOJ were meeting with him about Hunter Biden corruption in China. But the two prosecutors he met with are the two prosecutors named in this are the charging officers in this indictment. So they were meeting with him to ask him questions about his own criminal culpability. So yeah, he was put out on bail, went on the lam. He put out a video 5 days ago, so then they unsealed the charges. So first, again, to go through the order of events, they told us there was a whistleblower. They said the whistleblower had tapes. Then they couldn't find the whistleblower. Then you said the whistleblower was murdered by Joe Biden. Then you said maybe the tapes didn't exist. Now we're learning that the whistleblower was a fucking spy for the Chinese government and he's on the lam. If you want to know exactly what he was up to, he was helping Chinese weapons manufacturers sell anti-tank launchers, grenade launchers, and mortars to Libya. He used code words in his emails. He called them toys. He was arranging some toys to be shipped from China to Libya. He also acquired bombs and rockets for the United Arab Emirates and drones for Kenya. He told an associate that worked with him that the unwillingness of U.S. officials to sell weapons to Kenya provided them with, quote, opportunity for profit. Hell yeah, buddy. Hashtag committing to the grind.
So this guy seems like he's on the up and up for sure. International arms trafficking with, Libya, China, and otherwise. So obviously very good. I keep repeating how credible he is. And sorry if you're going to get into it, but what's their stance on his credibility in terms of what his position is and why that means he knows the stuff that he says he knows? Also, is it public record what he says that he knows, or we're supposed to be finding that out later? That's the bombshell they're going to drop later, or what?
He says that Hunter Biden was taking payoffs for doing influence peddling for some Chinese oil company called CERC. The details of it, we don't know because they never got into the details. You don't give details to this shit because then you can pin down details. You just throw vague bullshit against the wall. Mm-hmm. And it's not like Hunter is some good faith, honest actor in a lot of this shit. It wouldn't be easy to pin something on him. They just got him for fucking tax fraud. But they'd rather get him for the imaginary stuff.
Because they want to rope his dad into it, right? I mean, that's why. Right. They would get him for the high level stuff because they can imply or somehow try to implicate Joe Biden in the shit with him.
But the problem is the people that are criminal informants are often criminals themselves, right?
It's usually typically how it works.
So you have a guy who's got him pretty dead to rights for influence peddling with China related to the Trump campaign and former CIA officials. And he's like, I know who's really influence peddling, Hunter Biden. Right. And he's trying to get immunity. He's just slinging bullshit, trying to get off.
Right. It's not like he doesn't have a motivation. Do you know what I mean? To be bullshitting or to gin some stuff up. He's got a very direct reason. And it's like you said, trying to get immunity or whatever. We know all this shady shit he's been up to. Surely there's no reason at all that he would definitely be acting in complete good faith when saying that, the Biden family has been influence peddling or whatever the hell he's saying.
Right. It's also there's tons of corruption here. They were sitting right on it, right? It's just not partisan useful. Like we talk about Americans have movie brains. They're imagining like Joe Biden meeting in an underground garage, take a briefcase full of cash while wearing a trench coat. When like I hear about this all the time, but real corruption is on the front paper of the fucking newspaper and in LinkedIn. Like you got James Woolsey, he used to be a government CIA official who's trying to taking money, at least indirectly, maybe may or may not know about it, from China to try to influence U.S. foreign policy. Mike Flynn, I don't know how he didn't get charged for this, but he was trying to arrange to take money from Turkey when he was a national security advisor to have Fethullah Gulen kidnapped from Pittsburgh back to Turkey to be tortured. There's stories every couple of weeks about how many retired U.S. military pilots are training Chinese Air Force pilots, which it seems bad. We should give them a better retirement in exchange for not fucking training maybe people will be at war with. Every general goes on to be a defense contractor lobbyist. Like there's so much open corruption sitting right there in front of you that you could stop.
Even like influence peddling, like what is the difference between that and like just lobbying? Do you know what I mean? Like lobbying is like legal influence peddling that everybody knows about and everybody's fine with for whatever reason, you know.
Right. If he had registered as a lobbyist for China, he probably wouldn't have gotten charged for that shit. But he was also doing stuff like helping Iran skirt oil sanctions, which would have been on the hook for anyway, because you can't legally or illegally lobby for Iran, right? So, but yeah, I put all this stuff I put lobbying under the brand of corruption too, just because the Supreme Court has legalized all kinds of bribery. To me doesn't make it appropriate, and Congress could do everything it can to at least embarrass people with it. The Supreme Court's not going to prosecute people for it. But like, if you wanted to focus on Biden and corruption, look, the normal everyday corruption's all over the place. Biden was a senator from Delaware for 1,000 years. Delaware is the
right tax haven capital of the world or whatever,
right? Yeah. The joke was he was anyway. Senator, Joe Biden, parentheses D, Citibank, right? That was a joke about him for years and years and years. He might have been fighting for his constituents. They were legally lobbying, but that's the stuff I would like to see not happen, is Citibank contribute a bunch of money to Joe Biden's campaign in exchange for lax financial regulations, right? That's stuff that's legal that everybody seems to think is okay in Washington, that the rest of us think is fucking gross. And so, again, the government needs oversight, but these assholes fuck it up so badly going into their cartoonish fever dream shit, they can't even accomplish normal stuff. Like I've been trying to figure out what the fuck, like the same thing with Benghazi. I was like, what do they actually think happened? Right. Like the fever swamp, stuff was like that Obama was shipping arms through Benghazi to, I don't know, help kill Christians or something, and like the ambassador was going to out him for it, so he had him murdered. Like, but it's like, okay, but what are like the 70% of people who are more sane than that mad about? I understand it's a tragedy, people died, and they should have had more reinforcements and more help. But what's the scandal? What's the crime? So The Intercept tried to get to the bottom of this. They're a reputable investigative outfit. I mean, they're going Glenn Greenwald's old outfit, so he's a stain on their legacy. But the two reporters here, Ryan Grimm and Ken Klippenstein, who's had some like major good scoops. They're investigative reporters who mostly do a good job. So they tried to figure out what the fuck the Republicans are talking about with Hunter Biden and Ukraine. All right. So basically, what happened is the FBI got a tip from a human source, covert human. I forget what they call it. Covert human source, I think is what they call it. So which means they fill out a form. And the form, I guess, is pretty damning if you take it at face value. All right, we'll get to what it actually says in a second. But if it claims the document to be believed, Ukrainian energy company Burisma funneled $5 million to then Vice President Joe Biden so he would pressure Ukraine to fire the prosecutor investigating Burisma for corruption. Joe Biden did, in fact, successfully push the Ukrainian government to fire the prosecutor in March 2016, though, as his defenders point out, getting the prosecutor fired was official U.S. policy. And I know we've talked about this before, but the reason was they fired the guy for not prosecuting corruption. He was a corruption prosecutor who was corrupt.
He was dirty. He was corrupt. Right. Yeah. He was allowing corruption. Yeah. He was like taking bribes and letting shit slide, which is why he needed to go. And, but this makes it look like he was paid to do that or whatever.
Right. So Chuck Grassley, senator from Iowa, heard about this form and asked if he could see it. And the FBI didn't want to give it to him for a couple of reasons. One, it's an unverified report from this guy, and it's not that it's not totally trustworthy. It's a game of telephone. I'll explain that in a second. But the FBI didn't want to give it over for a couple of reasons. One, it may not be credible. It's just a guy saying stuff, right? 2, they don't want to get their source exposed and get them either busted or murdered. But Comer and Grassley didn't care, so the FBI eventually relented and gave them this unverified form. So this guy told the FBI does think he's credible. In June 2020, they had a conversation with the Burisma executive while Biden was VP. The executive asked the source for help linking Burisma up with an American energy company, and the source asked why their help was needed if the company had Hunter Biden, who was on the company's board. The executive said Hunter Biden was dumb.
Mm-hmm.
He was hooked on crack at the time, and had already paid $5 million to Hunter and $5 million to Joe through a variety of accounts. It would take years to disentangle. So, again, to recap here, this guy was told by a second guy that Hunter told him that Joe got a cut.
Right. Which could just be crackhead Hunter like bullshitting, right? Being like,
yeah, because you got another $5 million out of it.
Right, exactly.
Like,
yeah. No, that's for my dad. Right.
Even if this guy's story is true, if this guy's story true, that the other guy's story was true, that Hunter said that still could mean they both just got hustled by a fucking crackhead.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's like there's so many layers to this because the guy who was the source for the Steele dossier, story about Trump peeing hookers in Russia. Yeah. I think most people think that's kind of bullshit by now, right? But the same guy was also a confidential human source to the FBI and got paid $200,000 by them over the course of years. He was hustling them with sort of fake intel too. The FBI gets taken for this shit all the time. Remember Whitey Bulger? They were paying Whitey Bulger money to lie to them. All right. Someone added it up. They pay like $42 million a year to human sources who are largely spies and criminals. All right. No one knows where that money goes or what they get for it. So the FBI is pretty embarrassed by all this shit. This is why they don't want to turn over raw source documents. But now the top Republicans are now citing the same quality of evidence that the Steele dossier was based on, that they defended as being uncredible, to say that Joe Biden is taking money took $5 million from Burisma. So right. I personally don't think Joe Biden took $5 million from Burisma. But this type of shit, this kind of cartoonish oversight that doesn't work and everybody's an idiot dumb fuck, is exact scenario where Joe Biden could absolutely get away with it. Mm-hmm. It's like our politics is so stupid right now. There's so much corruption they could look into, like with lobbying and bribery and fucking and corruption. The DOD, the trillions of dollars of waste gets wasted or disappears in the name of national defense and making weapons we don't need. You got people going back and forth between working for the government and working for Wall Street banks. You got all this shit is right in front of them. The
Supreme Court, all that.
Right. Instead, they're doing Clinton body count shit with Joe Biden, who might be the most boring person to ever fucking live, turning him into like a super spy assassin who's on the take from China, Ukraine, and everybody else, I guess. Just fucking hold regular government hearings and find out what's going on. Because if we can't follow it, what do you hope to accomplish?
I feel like if they're doing their job regularly, they know they'd be turning up a lot of their colleagues' corruption and whatnot, or they got their own skeletons in the closet or whatever. So, and plus it's just like what the base wants to hear. They're going to take down the Biden crime family, whatever. So they're just going to waste everybody's time and all the resources on this, cartoon goose chase. But ain't that America? Matt, if you want to pull up some comments and stuff for us, we got to them this week. Look at us doing good.
Hey, have you? I want to do a fun story before we go. Have you seen this stuff about the traffic cones and robo-taxis in San Francisco?
No. What?
So San Francisco and some areas of the city are rolling out robo-taxis, which people hate them for lots of reasons. Like there's their regular urbanist reasons. A lot of people hate them. Like people in LA absolutely will beat the shit out of those Lime scooters you see them laying around because everyone just hates them. It's like anyway, for the same reason that people are annoyed by those robo-taxis. Also, people resent drivers being put out of work, but also their lives being risked in a beta testing thing with these things rolling around the streets.
Yeah. So we're just talking about driverless cars, right?
Right.
That. Okay.
So, but they figured out that if you put an orange cone on the hood of these things, it puts them on the fritz. They basically the hazard lights start blinking, and the thing bricks like a computer
from an orange traffic cone just setting on the hood of it.
Yeah, so people in the Bay are posting a bunch of videos or the tutorials and telling everybody to do it. So everybody's just fucking with these robo taxis, and the companies are whining their asses off about it, and it just really made me laugh. That's a fun little bit of non-compliance because you're not causing any property damage or hurting anybody.
Right.
You're just annoying a fucking stupid tech bro.
Dude, that's like, it feels like a bit of an engineering oversight to me if your whole thing can be taken down by a traffic cone.
Yeah, I'm not trusting my life to it.
Farmer James says, hit that like button, folks. Thank you, James. Appreciate that. Yeah, like, share, subscribe, do all that internet stuff. We appreciate you. Lauren Russell Pank says, Mark, they do not want to seriously investigate the corruption. Yeah.
I know, but like,
yeah.
Like, there's an appetite for it. It's why Trump made one of his campaign slogans, drain the swamp. We all fucking know it's there.
Emily, I was thinking a similar thing at one point when Mark was going over all that. Emily Budd says, how does one become one of these shady as fuck human sources asking for a friend? I think that all the time when like you're going over this guy's list of, shady transgressions, all the stuff he's brokering, fucking arms deals in all these different countries and shit. And I'm always like, how does that, like, how do you end up there? How do you get into that racket? What college do you go to or whatever?
I think if you want to be believable as a source to the FBI that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, you probably have to have some connections to a shady underworld, a dangerous underworld element, or like a foreign government that's an enemy. Mm-hmm. So I would say probably don't try to do that.
Mike says, wish I was a human source. A lot of people wanting that sweet, sweet FBI money out here in the comments. John Orbit Bainbridge says, American justice, the richer you are, the more corrupt you are, the less guilty you are. The less guilty you are found. Yes. It do be that way. Uh-huh. It do. John is back, says, sad fact, the courts are just as corrupt as the politicians and the lawyers. Yes, becoming more evident by the day. What that crazy Trump judge in Florida, there's something with her going on, right? Judge Cannon, they petitioned her to delay the whole thing until after the election.
Until basically, like, if I didn't read the specifics, but the top line takeaways I read were like, if she accepts their timeline, they'll be going to trial right around the election. So yeah, he'll be basically they're saying, can we delay the trial till I can pardon myself if I'm convicted?
Uh-huh. And that's something she can just snap her fingers and do, I assume, and then they couldn't undo it. I mean,
the right to a speedy trial is the defendant, so it might even be like sort of the correct call. I don't know, but it's like it's going to be. I don't get over these people who don't mind looking fucking stupid for Trump. It's so weird to me. Like, why would you throw your life over a barrel for him?
Yeah, no loyalty coming the other direction. You fuck up in any tiniest way. You gone. Chuck Atkins says it's like the entire House GOP has the combined intelligence of Herschel Walker. Some of them are actually real smart. They're just bad. Corey's got like a stand-up bit about that, which I think it's like, some of them are dumb as fuck. Don't get me wrong. But some of them are like just shitty, they're not stupid. They're bad.
Well, some of them are just power hungry, right? But before we get to that, this lady roast you. But that might be a dude. Sorry, I don't know why I assumed. I can't tell which ones are dumb and which ones are just cynical. But also they're all trapped in the same, like, what's called epistemic closure, where you get the same bad information. They all just watch Fox News and Newsmax. So
right.
The fact they don't understand that the rest of us can't decipher them. Like, I had to go read that Intercept report to even understand what they're trying to say happened with Burisma and the Bidens. So it's just like it's very weird.
T Voss 241 on YouTube says Nevadan here. The pronunciation is a very big deal. Well, I do apologize. That's one of those things. I just found out there was what was it? I just found out there was some other word that I had been saying wrong my whole life just the other day. That happens to me a lot, because I know a lot of words, but I butcher a lot of them too. Oh, it was detritus. Detritus, you know that word, Mark? Like debris, basically trash, whatever. I'd called it detritus my whole life. I still prefer detritus, really, but it's not up to me. Anyway, Spencer says, how's the writer's strike going, Mark? What's the latest update? I've been going down there and holding my sign and shit, but I'm just waiting on them to tell me it's over or whatever.
Did you say there was a Texas Day at Disney the other day? You said?
Yeah, Disney Studios, the picket lines. It was Texas Day, and I had my Tennessee cap on, and it wasn't deliberate, but I felt like it seemed like it was, because there were a lot of people there like who weren't Texans but knew it was Texas Day, so wore Texas shit as like solidarity. Like, I like Texas, and I'm down there like fuck it, because I don't know, people don't even know. There's a weird relationship from Tennessee with Texas, but Texas don't even like know or care about it. You know what I mean? Like,
the degree what they care is just about the being grateful that you guys sent some guys to die at the Alamo.
yeah, right. That's pretty much
You
the
know,
whole thing. Yeah. Like when I was in Texas once watching a UT game at a bar, there was a papaw from Tennessee in there wearing an orange shirt. He clearly had printed himself. And it said, if it wasn't for Tennessee, Yuns would all be speaking Spanish right now. Go Vols. You know, so it's like that type of thing.
Yeah.
In Texas,
So
like, we don't think about you at all.
the last person asked how the writer's strike was going. That leads into this question. Aaron McCullough asked, do you think SAG will strike? So there's no negotiation going on with the writers right now. They're just the AMPTP, which is they're just like, they walked away from negotiations, even calling it a strike. We talked about this before. It's sort of a lockout because they refused to negotiate. So everyone's sort of been waiting to see what the writers were going to do. They gave a strike authorization a while back.
You mean the actors, right? You mean
the actors,
what SAG is going to do. Yeah.
They voted, I think 65,000 of them voted out of 160,000 membership, which membership can be misleading because a lot of people quit or retire or move on, to give up on the business. So 65,000 people voted. They had a 98% strike authorization vote. So the deal was up 2 weeks ago, I think, but they gave an extension that ends tomorrow night. So a couple things could happen. The actors could accept a shitty deal. Which then the negotiating committee would accept the shitty deal, which then the rank and file would have to vote on. They could extend the deadline again, or they could fucking walk. All right. Saw news stories before we hopped on here that the heads of Warner Brothers, Netflix, and Disney are trying to call in a federal negotiator to like force all the strike, which I don't know what a negotiator would do. Try to get the government to pressure the actors. Just got like, I don't know, we'll call in the National Guard and shoot at young Sheldon's feet to make him dance. I don't think they anticipated this level of solidarity or how fed up people were, how scared they were of the AI stuff and the future of technology as it relates to entertainment. So they seem to be a little bit shooken because a SAG strike would shut down overseas productions, which people are saying was their, ace in the hole, was they'd still have content coming through as long as filmed overseas. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen next. I hope they vote to strike to make the AMPTP come back to the table and everything ends soon. Everybody can go back to work. Because I was hanging out yesterday with a guy who's an IATSE, which is a sister union of like the technical people. He's an editor, and he hasn't worked in a while. Man, it sucks for everybody. So.
It does suck. Charles Ritt says, are you ever going to write a book? Okay, well, so I have written a book with Corey and Drew. It's called The Liberal Redneck Manifesto. Me and Corey have written another book. They're not related, though. It's a totally separate book. This book's coming out in September called Round Here and Over Yonder. It's a travel guide, a comedic, satirical travel guide to the U.S. and also England and Scotland, which we visited for the first time to write about in this book. So, yeah, you can pre-order that now if you go to TreyCrowder.com. What about you, Mark? You ever going to write a book? You want to write a book? You ever thought about writing a book?
No. Pilots, those are about 60 pages, about they'll have the attention span for. 60 pages, triple space, about they have the attention span for.
Yeah.
To plug your first book, it was a New York Times bestseller, right? You guys got to go on The View to talk about it.
We did not make the New York Times bestseller list. We made a couple of there's a bunch of different lists. We made a couple of them. We did go on The View and talk about it. It's got a high rating on Goodreads and stuff like that. And it did fine. We'll see how this one does. Dottie Kelly says Oregon needs to be pronounced correctly too. It is Oregon, right? You talking about people saying Oregon? Because who says that? It is Oregon, right, Mark? It's Oregon. Right?
She's got me. Dottie's got me thinking on it. I've been to Oregon, and they say Oregon. I think if it's Oregon,
it was Oregon. Yeah, I've heard every now and then, a Papa or something will say Oregon, but I've always thought well, that ain't right. I sure hope it ain't. Right. I go to Portland every year, love it. So I hope I've been saying the state correctly. Oregon, Oregon, Oregon. That ain't really helping me much. Thanks, Armchair QB1. Willow Wisp says not yet, but okay. Never mind. Sorry, Willow. Matt
decided no on that one. Yeah.
Matt says it's time to go, I reckon, which he's not wrong. So go to TreyCrowder.com, get your tickets, and pre-order that book if you so desire.
Matt's a union man. He says, my shift's over, bitches.
Yeah, shift's over. Time to go. Pack it up, everybody. TreyCrowder.com for tickets, book stuff, all that good stuff. WeeklySkews.com/more to sign up on the Patreon and get bonus episodes and support the show. And you can find my special damn boy on YouTube. The important thing is keep coming back here every Skews, and we will too. We'll see you.